Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. We've got a jam-packed week of Palantir news. As you can see, I've made several videos already this week, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of everything happening around, like more Palantir links, insider selling, the Titan program, and possibly a new product or tool from Palantir's internal team called Witchcraft, as well as a Palantir senior policy advisor to Alex Karp, who did have an interview on CNBC giving their outlook on China and US and that relationship. So looking at the stock first, kind of the same old middle ground ending week here between the 14s and 15, so nothing crazy at least. So what was all the news happening? So I'll briefly note the videos I posted this past week, but get onto the newer stuff as well. So first, there was a jump in short interest on the stock after trending down the last few months. Nothing crazy per se, so I'm not saying there'd be any chance of a short squeeze, but just something to note because it was a 13% jump from the previous short interest measurement or the number of shares being shorted against the outstanding float. So it's something I like to keep track of, but it's not necessarily an indicator of what's going to happen to the price. Next, Palantir had a PR regarding the availability of their Agora product now, which is going to track carbon emissions. The significance here is that it was actually originally developed for the refined metals industry, but that's going to be picked up by the energy sector now, and one of their notable first partners is BP. So there's going to be more to see where that lands later on, and I'm optimistic on its scalability across the globe. And in my video too, I do note that this is a possible monopoly at least because they're trying to create a standard here. So check that out if you're interested in those details. Then we have Alex Karp going around Eastern Europe. So first he spoke at Estonia's Tallinn summit, where he mostly talked about the government military business, of course, since that region's most pertinent there with the war in Ukraine and things happening in the region in general. While there, he also met with Estonia's Prime Minister, Kaja Kallas, and also Finland's Defense Minister, Antti Hakan. So forgive my pronunciation there for both of their names. But my thoughts overall is that NATO expansion is happening, of course, and it's one of the biggest opportunities this decade, as well as the modernization of the alliance and any of their defense anyways. So while geopolitical tensions are rising due to the war in Ukraine and Europe and Russia in general, there's also the Chinese aggression as well that we're going to be thinking about, and NATO is increasingly wanting to at least have some significance in that region as well. So more to see there, and I just hope to see that Palantir continues to spread and become almost a standard as well. And while this was all happening too, Palantir was getting press coverage for further legitimizing them as an AI player. And that's with joining Biden's commitments to safeguard AI technology alongside other big names as it's developed, while Alex Karp also being named on Time's 100 AI list. So even without these lists and recognition, us retail investors already know about this for Palantir, and it is a legitimate AI force and their products and having real impacts in the real world today with Ukraine, hospitals, and just general industry everywhere and improving everything. But it's always great to see this media attention finally helping to shore up their reputation and make it a little more official. It doesn't hurt to have some more name recognition out there and have customers think about Palantir in a positive light for the first time before even trying to hear all about those typical, Donald Trump, Peter Thiel spy company stuff here. So it's always great to have that kind of information out there floating for Palantir. And I just hope as an investor it leads to actual sales. Next, we've got the announcement of AIPCon 2 and the keynote speakers. I did a whole video on this, so if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about the speakers and what they do and what they've already done with Palantir, so feel free to check that out. But mainly there's a lot of organizations using AIP in such a short amount of time, with over 100 of them as they've noted, and this was also on the earnings call as well recently. And 30 of them actually are presenting, so it's not the keynote speakers necessarily, but also running workshops on how they're using AIP. And there are big names in there like the New York Stock Exchange, Intuit, so if you get your taxes done, Sompo Japan, of course, which is great to see an international client. So that's just to name a few, and I'm excited to see that there. I'll probably create follow-up videos for that as well next week once the event goes on. And then we also got a new partnership announced with not only is it in healthcare, but is international. It's in Italy with a university research hospital called Policlinico Gemelli, and they are the largest hospital in Rome and will be using artificial intelligence to go through their vast amounts of data and improve clinical outcomes, drug discovery, as well as overall improving their telehealth services. So I hope to see more expansion here over time. You already know about my biases towards the healthcare industry. It's what I work in now, but I see it as the next big opportunity for Palantir to become a standard or monopolize some sort of function that a lot of these health services are doing and tying it all together. So not just hospitals, but also with the medical supplies as well as the pharma side that we're seeing. Now onto the littler news that I haven't made videos on. We've got a new link from EtherSquare showing connections to Arriva Pharma. They make generics but also cancer drugs. It's just more evidence of Palantir getting deeper into the drug discovery that I just mentioned in pharmaceutical industry. So it's maybe a sign that they can become a standard as well in the future, and more to look out for that. Now, insider selling wise, we got a small sale from a director, Alexander Moore. I'm just bringing it up so investors like yourselves can know about it and see these kind of SEC filing yourselves. And they're not all the doom and gloom that articles may bring it up to be. In this case, it was actually a very small, pre-planned trading schedule. So it's not like he sold it out of nowhere, and plus it was only around 22,000 shares at the $15 range. And after all is said and done, it's really nothing because his position remaining is still over 1.7 million shares, so it's not a big deal in my eyes. Now, on the Titan program, this is big. This has been going on for a while, where Palantir and Raytheon are competing for all or some of this large contract. Basically, it's a nothing sandwich right now, but there was a reminder kind of article for folks, and people have been talking about it as well on YouTube, that this can be awarded probably before the end of the year. So if Palantir wins some or all of this contract, that will be a major step forward for them in the government business in the United States. It'll be huge because it'll be for modernizing the armed forces and basically being a transformative project that will be highly paid. So hopefully there's a good outcome here. I would like them to win the majority of the contract and beat out Raytheon, but if they have to share, it's still better than nothing. We do know they're a top contender here since they're going through that trial basis for that smaller contract previously. And then next, we got 2 blog posts from Shyam Sankar. They are longer reads here and a lot more detailed jargon in there, so it's just a warning, but I do recommend that people read this. Essentially, it's about their government business, their history, philosophy, and the overall progress around the products they've developed over time, and of course, their value, to give manageable security controls and automation to truly have a good product here. And this, of course, can be for the government to trust them. Now, the big kicker from this is in the coming soon section in the second blog post. They reveal that they'll be making one of their internal products called Witchcraft available open source. What that sounds like to me is that there's a possibility they want to make this a product, because it also says they are seamless with Apollo and with FedStart. So government-wise, it sounds like a win-win where Palantir can show off the things they've been doing in the background and impressing the folks who actually use this tool to start integrating it. It also reminds me of Apollo because that was also previously an internal tool. It just makes me excited to know there's probably a lot more under the hood at Palantir than any of us would know or even the customers know about, considering this was something internal that they use for themselves. So more to see as we get some progress on that. And then on CNBC, Jacob Helberg, who was a senior policy advisor to Alice Karp, did a CNBC interview on the whole China situation around banning iPhones for government employees to retaliate against the American restrictions as well on the Huawei chip situation. And being a policy advisor for Palantir, I believe this is a reflection on the kind of outlook Palantir is naturally going to have as well, growing with the tensions with China and the AI race. I mean, they said he is a policy advisor to the CEO. So in turn, this affects the business decisions that Palantir is making and have been making for quite some time, honestly. And we know they won't do business with adversarial countries, of course, like Russia and China, because they strongly believe their technology needs to stay out of their hands. I think it will be increasingly essential for US companies to choose a side like Palantir, or also have to deal with the real risks of dealing with China and having to cave in to certain demands or kind of changes, or just lose money, which will disappoint investors. I know it puts them in a very hard place because it's such a big opportunity, but it's not a new narrative here, and it always seems to be the boogeyman that China is always around the corner to topple the US, and there's a lot of side effects that happen to businesses that get caught in the crosshairs. But these emerging technologies are important, and it gives the US, as well as China, a chance to militarily pull ahead as AI is leveraged. So more to see as well there. But yeah, that was a lot today to cover this week. What are your thoughts on all this news? Let me know below, and thank you all for watching, and appreciate my channel members, and I'll see you in the next video.